Amen. Nick, pray for us, please.
Can we all bow our heads and close our eyes? Father God, we come to you today acknowledging that through everything we go through and everything that's going on in the world at this very moment, you are still good, and you are sovereign, and you are still king. And we recognize that you are the one who has all power and authority. At this moment, we acknowledge that our lives belong to you, and all things that we do and all things that we say. In the name of Jesus Christ, the Son you gave, who died for us, we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you all for sharing. You can follow along and get the notes for tonight if you have my mobile app. If you don't have it, you can either go to the Google Play Store or the App Store on your Apple device and search T.R. Shields Foundation. It'll pop up. It's a little white logo with red background. It says T.R. Shields on it. Click that, download it. Go to the section that says The Good Life, and then go to the section that says Bible Study Notes, and you will find it. So it's there if you have the app and you want to open it up. The notes are there. Tonight we are talking about giving our last, which is why I asked you to talk about this whole idea of an area that you fear or have some reservations with, very specifically in the area of giving. So we're going to look at the story. The story is found in 1 Kings chapter 17. 1 Kings chapter 17, we're going to start at verse number 8. So I'll read it, and then we'll kind of talk through it on tonight. So, here we go. Then the word of the Lord came to him being the prophet Elijah. Arise and go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to feed you. So he rose and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her, and he said, Bring me a little water in a vessel that I may drink. And she was going to bring it. And he called to her, and he said, Bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. And she said, As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. And now I am gathering a couple of sticks that I may go and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat and die. And Elijah said to her, Do not fear, go and do as you have said, but first make me a little cake and bring it to me, and afterwards make something for yourself and your son. For thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, the jar of flour shall not be spent, and the jug of oil shall not be empty until the day that the Lord sends rain upon the earth. And she went and did as Elijah said, and she and he and her household ate for many days. The jar of flour was not spent, neither did the jug of oil become empty, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke by Elijah. My question tonight, before I go to our points, is this. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you think about? Yes, ma'am.
I remember this story being mentioned last week. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Second thing, the story is way more, what is the word? It's like, when you mentioned it last week, I was like, okay. Like the woman said she was gonna, you said last week, like the woman said she was about to make a cake and die. Mm-hmm. And then when you read it more in depth and you actually got into the story, I'm like, okay, so this woman really had no plans on living anymore. Like she had planned her life to be over. Like it was nothing else she felt like she could do. And then God, once again, did what he does and put super on her natural and made it happen. Like,
mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
With this story, again, I also remember this story just from a long time ago. But what really, what I got from it more so was just obedience. If somebody, not somebody, but I guess if God speaks to you, or and you feel led to do something, and you know that it's God, that you should just do it, even though you might not have enough for yourself, or in your child, but that's like a pretty big consequence that you cannot feed your child or in yourself. So obedience.
or you feel like you don't have enough?
Or
Like
you
I
feel like you
mentioned,
don't have enough?
that seemed like a thing earlier today with people saying like they don't feel like they have enough of something or they are enough of
You
something.
said this felt like a theme earlier on when we were talking, that
Yeah.
people felt like
Like
they did not have enough. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
No?
No? All right. Here's the first point that I want to make tonight, and that is this. God has ordained you to be a giver. God has ordained each of you in the room to be a giver. So verse number 8 says, Then the word of the Lord came to him, Arise and go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to feed you. So if you look at the Hebrew transliteration of this word here for command, it literally means to lay a charge upon, to give a charge over, to appoint, to ordain, or to commission. So I want you to hold that there. Then I want you to think about this. He says in Zarephath. Now Zarephath, literally the word Zarephath means refinery. And Zidon means a place of fishing. So I want you to think about it this way, right? So God says to Elijah, I want you to go down to a place now. Refinery is a process of preparation for use, right? I want you to go down to a place where I have this woman dwelling who is being cleansed and being made ready for use to draw others, right? So I want you to see this. In Matthew, the 4th chapter, the 19th verse, Jesus is having a conversation with some people who he decides are going to be his disciples. Hey, come follow after me. And they're fishing. And he says to them, hey, if you follow after me, then I will make you fishers of men, right? So I want you to see now that literally the place that this woman is dwelling is known as a place of being a refinery, as well as known as a place in a region for fishing. She is literally in this process, like many of us find ourselves now in our lives, in a process where we're being refined. So if you refine anything, the purpose of refining something is to purify it for use, right? So if you refine gold or if you refine silver, they literally put it in a hot place. They put it in a kettle and they melt it down at extremely high temperatures now so that all of the impurities can float to the top and then be burned off. Right? So she's in this place of process. She's in this place like many of us find ourselves now in our current life. We feel like we're being processed now, right? And she's also living in this region now where they are known to catch fish. And a part of the Great Commission, a part of who we are called to be as Christians, are to be people who are fishers of men, right? To go out to all the nations, baptizing them, teaching what it is that Jesus has taught his disciples, right? Being disciples. So she finds herself now in this place of preparation, and God says, hey, it is at this particular place that I've set and I've commanded somebody who is going to give to you. So God says to Elijah, there's this woman there, and I've ordained for her to give to you. I've ordained for her to give to you. Now, there's some interesting things that we'll see in the next couple of minutes with this particular woman and with God and with Elijah, because there's some stuff that does not make a whole lot of sense. There's some stuff that is disjointed, and hopefully by the time we finish tonight, it'll help you as it has helped me, right? So our God-given capacity to give is greater than our current condition. Right? So our God-given capacity to give is greater than our current condition. So God says, hey, go down to Zarephath. There's this woman there, and I've commanded for her to be able to give to you, for her to be able to provide for you. So let's continue reading the story again. So verse number 10 says, So he got up, he went down to Zarephath, and he gets to the gate of the city, and behold, there's a woman there, and she's gathering sticks. And so he calls her, he says, hey, bring me a little bit of water. And as she's going to bring him water, she says, hey, bring me a little bit of bread, a piece of bread. And she's like, okay, listen, I don't have any bread baked, and I only have a little bit of flour, I only have a little bit of oil, and I was getting these sticks so that I can go and make a cake for my son so that we can eat and we can die. Now, city gates, I want you to see where he meets the woman at. It says that he meets the woman and she is gathering sticks at the city gates. Anytime you see city gates in scriptures, Bible study, I want to teach you a little bit tonight, right? If you see city gates in the Bible, gates represent a place of strategic planning. Gates represent a place of planning, right? And so Elijah meets the woman at the gate, and he literally interrupts her plans. He interrupts her plans, and he asks for more than what the woman feels she can give. You said it already. You said that many of us in the room tonight, when we were talking about kind of our fears and our reservations on giving, felt like that perhaps there was being more asked of us than we had the capacity to give, which goes back to my point, right? And that is that our God-given capacity is greater than our current condition. Woman's current condition, she feels like she has nothing left. She feels like she's only got a little bit, enough to be able to eat and to die. God sends Elijah to her, and Elijah says, hey, give me some water. The woman doesn't have any problem with giving Elijah water. I don't have a problem. I got a cup, there's a well right here, I can go and get you some water. There, she hits this place like many of us do. You can ask me for some things, and I don't have a problem helping you. I can have a smile on my face, regardless of what I have going on the inside, regardless of what I have going on around me. If you ask me for certain things, it is easy for me to do. It is easy for me to accomplish. Now, you got to see this. In the middle of her going to get his water, he says, oh, by the way, can you bring me some bread? Now, the woman this is me painting this picture for myself. I won't say that this is exactly what she did, but I felt like good New Yorker ghetto come out in her. Right? She's like, wait, whoa, bruh. Now listen, you asked me for the water. I don't have any problem going to get you the water. But now you're asking me for something that I don't have the capacity to give you. You're literally, what you just asked me for, if I gave it to you, would be the last of what I have. If I gave it to you, I wouldn't have anything else. And see, we can handle when somebody needs certain things, but the moment that we feel like they're doing too much, most of us got to let you know that you're doing too much. Right? The moment that you start asking too much of us, see, and there's something about this generation that, and I love y'all, right? But there's something I can't stand. And this is what I can't stand. At least this woman is an adult. She's like, bro, I don't have that. What I have is enough for me and my son, and we're going to go and die. Because you know what most of y'all would, no, not you, I'm sorry, your cousins and your friends in your dorm rooms and stuff, you know what they would have done? They would have looked at him when he asked for the bread, and they would have walked away and not said anything else to him. Because, you know, we just walk away and stop talking to folks. We think that's a responsible thing to do because we don't adult. Right? She's at least an adult in the text. She comes out, she's like, no, listen, I can't do that. She continues to have a conversation that at this point gets uncomfortable. A conversation that at this point gets real and gets raw and gets ugly. She's like, listen, I don't have this. What you just asked me for, I'm preparing. You saw me, you came and you interrupted my plans now because I was gathering these sticks. Because, first of all, I ain't got no bread baked. If I had bread baked, then maybe we could talk. But I don't have enough oil and flour to make you something and to go through with my plan of eating and dying. I don't feel like I have enough resources. I don't feel like I have enough energy. I don't feel like I have enough emotional energy. I don't have enough of any of this to do right. And so many of us feel like what people are asking of us or what God is asking of us is too much. And we don't know, see, this is the kicker, right? Got to see this in the text. Many of us don't realize that what's being asked of us is God sent. I'm going to show it to you in the text in just a minute, right? Because God says to Elijah, go down, I've commanded the woman, and she's going to give to you, right? God told Elijah that he commanded the woman to give. Clearly, God didn't send the memo to the woman, though. Because Elijah comes to her, and she's like, I don't have nothing to give you. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have enough resource for you. And see, many of us, there are things that are being asked of us that we feel like they are too much. And we lack the revelation of the understanding at this current condition in our life that what's being asked of us is not simply because somebody's being greedy. It's not simply because somebody's being insensitive. It's not simply because people are unaware of our experience and what's going on, so we have to tell them everything that's going on in our lives. But it's because God has a bigger plan and he wants to show us something about our current condition. Right? He wants to show us that perhaps we actually have more than what we think we have. Right? So, and so it is God now that sends him to ask. Then, so we've got to get to a place where we can trust that God's plans are bigger than our plans. Proverbs 19:21 says like this: many are the plans of a man's or a woman's heart, but it is the purposes of God that prevail. Right? So we can have all the plans in the world, but at the end of the day, whose plans excel and propel are God's plans and purposes. So see, I love God so much so that God won't completely rearrange your plans all the time. Now sometimes he will. All right? Sometimes God will completely rearrange your plans. Just kind of like scrap them and throw them out the window while you're on the highway. But not all the time. Sometimes God's like, okay, you know what? I can rock with this because I want to show you something where you're at. So I'm not going to completely try to overthrow all of your plans. So listen, what's clear? What's clear is that God tells Elijah that he's appointed this woman to be his resource. But God has not yet told the woman. Furthermore, the woman's resources to provide for Elijah's request now require that the woman abandon her plan because she feels like she doesn't have it. He literally asked for what she feels is her last. And I don't know if anybody in the room tonight has ever been in a place in their life, if you have not lived long enough, because you will, felt like people or even God has required the last of you, the last of your money, the last of your emotional energy, the last of your time in the day, the last of just who you are as a person, the last little bit of love that you feel like you're holding on to, the last little bit of peace or joy that you feel like you have, the last of what you feel like you have, right? He literally asked for what she perceives as her last. See, but there are areas in our lives that God has already required of us that many of us are not aware of that God has required of us. Now see, this is the thing that's kind of one of those, all right, what's really happening, what's going on? Because clearly, God says to Elijah, go, I've commanded her, she's there. You read the text, maybe it's just me, but this woman seems oblivious and unaware to the fact that God said that she had enough resources to provide for somebody other than her and her son who are now getting ready to die. Right? And so if that's the case, then the conclusion that we can draw out of the text is that perhaps there are areas in our lives that God has already required of us that we're not even aware that he's required of us yet. There's some things that we'll encounter. There's some people that we'll encounter. There's some situations that we'll encounter that will require more of us than we feel like we can handle or we can give. That God has already ordained for us to be a giver in that particular place, and it's not yet been revealed to us, not yet been given to our understanding that we have the actual capacity to be able to give it, right? To give when we feel like we don't have to give. Is there anybody in the room tonight that's ever been in a place where you feel like people or stuff or even God is asking you to give and you feel like you don't have it to give? All right. So even at the point of our last, we need to realize that God is only asking for a piece. I love it, right? You got to see it. So when Elijah asked the woman, the prophet says, hey, can you go, this is when he interrupts her when she's going to give him the water, right? Can you go and give me a morsel of bread? Can I have a piece of some bread that perhaps you have baked? Elijah could have said, hey, can you go and give me a loaf of bread? Can you go and give me all the bread in your house that you got? I did everything that you got in your house because I'm hungry. The raven stopped feeding me. The brook has dried up now. I haven't eaten a couple of days. I had to walk here from where I was at, and I'm starving. So I need like a buffet. I need for you to spread out the table. You know how you watch movies and you kind of watch some of these movies, and the preacher would come to the house, and Big Mama and them would like cook and have like 5 different meats. Maybe some of y'all grew up like this. Forget the preacher coming to the house. You know, on Sundays, your grandmama or your mama would cook like 5 different meats, and you're like, okay, this is like 6 different meats. 5 different meats, like 6 different starches, 12 different vegetables. You got collard greens and sweet potatoes and white potatoes, and you got cornbread, and you got green beans, and you got all types of stuff. And you're like, who gonna get all this food? It's just food everywhere, right? He could have came into the situation like, listen, I'm hungry, and I need lots of food. But you gotta see it. He says, can I have a piece of bread? The woman says, well, listen, I ain't got no bread, babe. And the material that I have is just enough for me and my son. His response to her is, okay, well, listen, I don't want you to change your plans. So if you plan on dying and you plan on baking you a cake, go ahead and do that. But I do have one request of you. Bake me a cake first. And then do what you plan on doing. Now, this woman says, I don't have enough for you. I have enough for me and my son. And the prophet says, that's great. I don't want you to change your plan. I just want you to adjust. Bake me something first, and then go ahead and bake your cake for you and your son. He literally looks at her, and I know that this request sounds and feels extremely insensitive, but the prophet seems to know something that the woman does not yet realize. That she has enough to accomplish her request that is set before her and still go through with her plan if she desires to. That she's not as limited in her current condition as she feels that she is. That although she feels like it's her last, she actually has more to give and she just can't see it right now. Right? And so the prophet seems to know this and she doesn't yet realize it. What's the point that you're making, Pastor Yar? We have enough to accomplish what's being asked of us even when we feel like we don't. Right? I want you to think about the last time that you said, I can't take this, I'm not going to make it through this, I can't handle this, and the entire time you're saying, I can't take it, I can't handle it, I'm not going to go through with this, this is going to take me out. You look up and you were saying that and you thought that 3 days was going to kill you, and it's a year and a half later. And you found a way to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you got in the presence of God, and you got around some people who loved you and cared for you, and although you're still dealing with some hurt, and you're still dealing with some pain, and every now and again things are uncomfortable for you, you looked up and you were still accomplishing more than you thought that you could accomplish because you felt like that was it and that was your last. You said, okay, I don't have any more energy, no new friends, I don't want to talk to nobody no more, you can keep it, don't come and ask me for no help, and then somebody comes and asks you for your help, and a part of you says, I don't want to do this, and then you find yourself still doing it, and what you said that you no longer could do, you still do. Why? Because we have enough to accomplish what is being asked of us. See, God will ask us of the same thing that we don't want to budge on. See, there are some things for some of us that we say, well, no, I just can't do that. I don't have the energy to do that. I'm afraid to do that. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And it is typically those things that seem to be required of us over and over and over again. It is those things that do not go away, right? It's those things that do not change. And God will ask the same thing of us that we don't want to budge on because He's trying to demonstrate to us that there is still more that we can do beyond what feels like is the end for us. God wants us to understand that most oftentimes what we feel is the end, what we feel is our last, is not our last, is not the end. So a good identifier that it is God that is doing this is that the same thing that you don't want to do keeps recurring over and over and over again. The same question keeps popping up over and over and over again. The same request keeps happening over and over and over again. You try to run away from it. You try to ignore it. You try to get away from it. You go to different places. You figure, I love this. This is what we do. Do you realize that people get up and move to different states thinking that they can avoid some stuff, and when they get there, the same thing meets them in the new state? People church hop and go from one church to another church, and the same thing faces them at the next church. People leave one relationship, get to another relationship, and the same thing is in the next relationship. People leave one job and go to another job, and the same thing is that. It's because God is trying to teach us that we can handle more than what we feel like we can handle. That what we thought was our last one was it is not our last and not is it. But see, there's more than just God trying to teach us that we can handle more. But there's actually another benefit in it, and I want to get there and I want to talk about it, right? So here's the point that I want to make, and that's this. Don't be afraid at the request to extend beyond what is comfortable for you. See, here is the fear. We talked about it tonight. This is the part of the problem. This is where the press is. This is the part of the conversation that we're having at the beginning of Bible study. Many of us are afraid to extend beyond what is comfortable for us. If it is comfortable for us, we will do it. If it is comfortable for us, we don't have any problem. We're saying, okay, I can handle that. I can go there. I can make that happen. But the moment it calls for us to extend beyond what is comfortable for us, we clam up, we get afraid, and while part of us says we want to do it, another part of us says, I'm not going to do it, I can't handle that, and so we kind of commit to doing it. You ever been in a place where you commit to doing something, but you're really afraid of doing it, so you never end up doing it, and then you look up and you're constantly frustrated because you feel like you should be doing it, but you're not doing it? And God wants us to not be afraid of requests that extend us beyond what is comfortable for us, because God, I love it, right? God does not completely change our plans. He's simply trying to extend a promise to us. So God won't always completely change your plan. God will let you keep your plan because God understands, and it is just how He has created us. There's something about being human that anytime you feel like your choice is completely taken away, you just automatically feel like you got to boycott the situation. It can be the right thing to do. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because you told me I had to do it. I don't want to do it because you told me I have no choice in it. And because you told me I didn't have any choice in it, I don't want to do it. God looks at the woman and says, hey, the prophet says, you know what? I don't want to change your plan. Just bake me a cake first. And then he says, because here is the word of the Lord. Verse number 13. And Elijah said to her, do not fear. Go and do as you have said, but first make me a little cake and bring it to me, and afterwards something for yourself and your son. For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, the jar of flour shall not be spent, and the jug of oil shall not be emptied until the day that the Lord sends rain upon the earth. He wants to extend a promise to her. He says, listen, I don't want to change your plan, but what I do want to do is get you to a place where you are at least obedient to what's being asked of you, so that you can get an extension and a promise extended to you that you would not otherwise have, because you felt like it was your last, and I'm trying to demonstrate to you that it's not. And the reason why I'm trying to demonstrate to you that it's not is because I'm trying to demonstrate to you that I've called you to be a giver, and if I've called you to be a giver, then you got to understand that I am the source of your resources. That you got to understand that when you feel like you can't, I can. That when you feel like you can't make it, that you can't handle it, I can give you the strength, I can give you the ability, I can open up doors that nobody else can open, I can shut doors that nobody else can shut, I can make ways that nobody else can make. I can make happen what nobody else can make happen, right? God desires to extend a promise to us, and the caveat now is not always that He'll change all of our plans, but rather that He will adjust them. So now what this requires is, not only do we not be afraid, but that we be flexible. That we say, okay, God, I'm willing to do this, and so, okay, you know what? And I preached this on Sunday. We started a series at the church on giving, and so I preached this on Sunday, and the title of the message that I preached on Sunday was giving God our first, right? We talked about Cain and Abel. I want you to go and read through the story, Genesis, the 4th chapter. If you go and you look at it, Cain now goes and he gathers fruit and gives an offering to God. Abel, it says now, gives the firstling of his sheep and the fatted portion. Cain is very specific and strategic and gives God his first. Abel. Cain just gathers what's around and just gives God something. And it says that God has respect for Abel's sacrifice and does not have respect for Cain's sacrifice, right? And so the issue, if you go and you read the text and you look at nuances, Cain just gathers a whole bunch of stuff, and Abel is very strategic and makes sure that he gives God what is God's first. And the only thing that God is asking in the adjustment of our plans is to make sure that we put Him at the front of it. So I can show you that if you just put me at the front of your plan, if you just do what I ask you to do first, then I won't have to convince you that you got to radically change your plan, because the resources kick in the change for itself. See, God is not always so much in the business of trying to change our emotion. He's trying to change our action. He said, listen, if I can get you to change your action, your emotion will follow suit. And see, most of us are, God, but I feel bad, and my emotions are all over the place. See, and this is the problem with Cain. If you look in the story, God says, hey, you can get it right, you can fix it, and it says that Cain is angry, and he's sad, and he's mad, and he allows for his emotions to become fatal, because sometimes our feelings become fatal, and instead of taking action and following what God says, he walks in his emotions and kills his brother. The woman could have stayed in her feelings and be like, okay, well, I still don't have enough. Woe is me, whatever. And God says, that's great. I don't want you to change your plans. If you want to bake a cake and die with your son after this, be my guest, but do what I say first. Because if we can get to a place beyond our emotion, beyond our hurt, beyond our pain, beyond our insecurity, beyond fear, beyond the fear of failure, beyond actual failures that we've had in our life, if we can get to a place that beyond how we feel, we can trust God and obey God's word, then God will do something for us that will radically change how we feel. I want to encourage you tonight something. I'm not saying that God can't help you to regulate your emotions, because he absolutely can. But for some of you in the room, you're frustrated because your prayer has been, God, help me to regulate my emotions. And he has not, but he did tell you to do something that you've chosen not to do. God, I'm tired of feeling like this. Okay. Did you do what I asked of you to do? Frustrated because you feel the same. See it in the text. The prophet could have said to her, hey, completely change your plans. Get out of your feelings. Get out of your emotions. You and your son won't die. Now he says. Rather he says, cool. Make a slight adjustment. Bake me something first. Then go ahead and cook something for you and your son. If you want to die, then go ahead and die. By the way, this is what the Lord says. The oil's not going to run out, and the flour's not going to run out. And so she takes a step of faith. She now recognizes that the Lord is speaking. She sees God in the circumstance and the situation. So we've got to learn how to see God in the situation. We've got to learn how to hear God in the situation. She sees God in the situation. She hears God in the situation. God begins to speak. And she says, okay, make a cake. She bakes him a cake first. And verse 15 says, and she went and did as Elijah said, and she and he, Elijah, and her household ate for many days. You kind of see this. God says, I commanded her to give to you. The commandment for her to give now was not fulfilled until she was obedient, right? And when she was obedient, it says that her son, and Elijah ate for many days. And the flour did not run out until the time said that it would, and the oil did not run out until the time said that it would. Here's the last point that I want to make tonight, then I want to have a conversation. If we do what God says do, then we'll see what God has said. Most of us want to see the promises of God manifested in our life. Most of us want to see the results of what God has promised. Most of us believe God, and we see other people getting blessed, and we see God doing things, and we know that God is in the neighborhood because he's working it out for my friends, and he's working it out for my families. But God, what about me? But see, if we would do what God has asked of us, then we would see what God has promised us. Most of us want to see it, but are too afraid to do anything. I promise y'all right now, and by the beginning of next year, I'll tell y'all a testimony on it because it is stretching me like no other. There are some things right now that I have no choice but to do that are requiring so much faith because I'm looking at stuff and it literally is costing 3 times as much as what I'm doing now. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, well, how are we going to do this? But how I know it's God, see, thank you, Holy Spirit. Told you. The stuff that keeps coming repetitively over and over and over and over again, right, is the stuff that then causes you to clam up in fear. And then God says, don't be afraid, don't fear, rather do what I ask you to do. How do I know that it's God? It doesn't matter size-wise, I'm telling myself just a little bit. Square footage-wise, no matter what I look at square footage-wise, it can be 1,500 square feet, or literally, it can be 10,000 square feet. And the number that I keep getting is the same number. That don't make no sense to me. You're telling me the square footage, you want the same amount of money for 1,500 square feet as somebody just told me they want for 10,000 square feet. I'm like, okay, God, so you got jokes. because I'm not sure how this is going to happen, but I believe you, and whatever you say, I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it because I understand now that there's a promise that is attached to the end of what you said. I need you to understand something. God will not ask you to do anything. God will not speak anything over your life without a promise being attached to it. God is not going to require something of you that scares the life out of you that you're not going to benefit on the back end from. That is not going to grow you. That is not going to stretch you. That is not going to cause for you to walk in a new level of faith. I talked about faith a couple of months ago, and I was talking about faith, and I said that faith is an active response to the Word of God. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. You look at Hebrews 11, everybody that it says, now by faith they did, if you look at what they did, it says, now by faith they did. Faith is an active response to God's Word. And if we are going to see what God has said, then we are going to have to do what God has asked. So my question to you tonight, and I want you to think about it, then we have some conversation, is this: what are some, you don't have to answer this question out loud, but what are some of the things that God has asked for you to do that perhaps you feel like are requiring too much of you to have to give, that if you really think about it, no matter how far you try to run from it, keeps popping back up in your face? I want you to identify that. And what I want for you to do is make a decision to do it. Well, I heard you. I don't know how to do it. Figure it out. It's uncomfortable for me. Good. Press past that. But what if? But what if not? Tired of being in the same emotional state? Do what God said and see if your emotions don't change. All right, I'm done. Questions, comments, thoughts? Talk to me. Okay. Who y'all quiet tonight? Why you so quiet? Yes, sir. Tell me your name.
My name is Nathan.
Nathan?
Yeah. I just wanted to add on to what you were saying about, going through tribulations, because I was reading like this weekend, and I was kind of like struggling with my faith, and like really like, I was just reading it in Romans 5. It talks about, finding glory in tribulations, and knowing that tribulations produce perseverance, and perseverance produces character hope. So like looking at our tribulations, looking at them as something that we can grow in, and that, like you're saying, like He tests us for a reason, for us to build, so that next time it comes around, we'll be ready.
Absolutely. I want you to go back, and I want you to read the rest of this chapter. It's like 1 Kings chapter 17. Did y'all see this? You said, as the next time it comes around, we'll be better, right? We'll be stronger. So they're eating good. Now, the woman says, I got enough food so that me and my son can go and die. They're eating good. And you know what happens? Her son gets sick and dies, and the prophet is living in the house. This woman has a fit. Looks at the prophet and says, bro, you got to be kidding me. Now I'm paraphrasing, but look, you go and read it, and you can see it for yourself. You got to be kidding me. So you're trying to tell me that I told you that me and my son were ready to die. You said, feed me first, and God said, this is what I'm going to do. And you're right, this is what God has done. I'm cool with it. But now I'm dealing with a greater level of pain because I was ready for me and my son to die. And if we died together, I wouldn't have to feel the loss that I'm feeling now because he died and I'm still here. And the prophet looks and he's like, well, I don't know. No, literally, go and read the text. He has a conversation with God and he's like, He can't respond to the woman. I can't tell you why your son died, and she's mad with him. Well, long story short is, he goes, he prays, he seeks the Lord, and the son comes back to life, right? He raises the son back up from the dead. Whole nother story, whole nother Bible study. I just kind of want you to go and read it. But it goes into this whole idea that stuff can be good, and then the bottom can fall back out again. Does not change the promise of God, does not change the fact that God said that he already did what he said that he was going to do. So what does it require? It requires that we continue to walk in faith. All right, what we got? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Right, so you know how you said like we change our actions, our emotions change. I agree and stuff, but is it just me because I'm crazy and have a problem? Or like, do people go in and out of those phases, like growing up? Like, I know some people can be more obedient than others, but like I've experienced, like I change action and like my emotions have followed just like you said, but then I find myself being dumb, just like in any aspect of life, and then it's just like, why are you doing this? I just feel like, sometimes I just feel like,
The goal in our Christian walk is consistency. The goal is to say, now listen, this is what God said, and this is what the result was when I was obedient. And now this is what I want to do, and this is how I feel. But I've had enough experiences where I've done what I wanted to do, and I've seen the results of what that looks like. So at some point, right, so this is not just growing up as young adults, but this is also growing up in the spirit. So let me talk about adulting. When I talk about adulting, I'm talking about both natural adulting and I'm talking about spiritual adulting. As an adult, adults don't do something, get the results, and then keep doing the same thing over and over again. You're being childish. So when you start being treated like a child, don't be mad that you're being treated like a child, because you're being childish. Because adults look and say, okay, I need to learn from this because this was not good, so let me make some different decisions so that I don't keep getting the same results, so that I don't keep getting in the same predicaments, so that I don't keep doing the same things. And so now what that often requires is us not being able to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it. You see, and a part of being an adult is understanding that you can't always do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, because that's irresponsible. Because children do what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it, and most of the time, you know what happens? They get in trouble for it. And or somebody has to come back behind them and clean it up. And or they start dealing with stuff emotionally and physically and mentally that they would have not had to deal with if they would have listened. So as adults, both growing up spiritually and growing up in the natural, we've got to make the tough decisions that say, I can't keep making the same dumb mistake. And I meant what I said when I said dumb. I'm not calling anybody dumb, but y'all do know we make some dumb and stupid decisions, right? Oh, yeah. Every single day. I can't stand this person. They get on my nerves, but I'm lonely, so I'm going to text them. Amen. And then you mad because they getting on your nerves. Go sit down somewhere. You did that to yourself.
I'm dry.
Oh my God, I'm so tired of being stressed because I got these papers to write, but my teacher gave me a syllabus. This is the press coming on me. But my teacher gave the syllabus at the beginning of the semester, and I knew I had to write this paper, but I refused to write my papers beforehand. I refused to read any books beforehand, so the night before I have not read anything, and I'm trying to write a 10-page paper. Go sit down somewhere. You want to be stressed. You want to. You deserve to be stressed. You deserve to get a C- on that paper. Let me tell you, I'll never forget my first year in graduate school. I was in a class in Timothy Johnson. He is a New Testament professor. taught over at Campbell School of Theology here in Atlanta, and everybody like in the world uses his New Testament book. Like Luke is the bomb. I got a seal on his paper. He's like, hey, if you guys want to know what's going on with your grades and third, come by my office and we'll talk about it. I walked into Luke's office and Dr. Johnson said, I want to know what's going on in my paper. He looked at my paper, he looked at me, he said, you wrote this paper the night before, didn't you? I said, yes, sir. He said, do you have any other questions? I said, no, sir. And we have this expectation that something's supposed to change because we deserve it. That something's supposed to change because I know I didn't do what I was supposed to do, but I expect different results. Be an adult and grow up. Grow up. I want us to grow up tonight. I want us to grow up in the spirit. Oh, I'm hurt. God, I'm so tired of the same thing over and over and over again, but I promised you I wasn't going to do anymore, but it feels so good. Stop doing it. That's why you keep being hurt in the same ways, in the same place. So when he freed you from it the last time, stay free. Be not entangled in the yoke of bondage. Here you go. Which so easily besets us. If it's easy to beset you, it means that it's easy for you to make the decision to do it, and it's probably a little bit harder for you to make the decision not to do it. Start making the hard choices. Lord, y'all got me parenting y'all tonight. It's terrible. Parenting and pastoring. So, right, but we have to grow up. We've got to grow up spiritually, but we got to grow up in the natural, right? We got to start making some better decisions. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yes, sir.
No, I thought it was interesting that you said, being an adult, and adulting was like, that you know what you have to do, and you can't do everything. But it's interesting because I remember as a child, I know many children think that way, that once they get an adult, they can do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And so I find that very interesting, and I don't know, maybe that's indicative if we have that attitude that we can do whatever we want. That shows like our maturity or where we are in this process of adulthood. That really we don't know nothing at all because you really can't do everything that you want, and you should do everything you want.
Freedom is not free. Freedom is costly. If you really want freedom, let me tell you something. I'm going to give you a good example. For my seniors in the room, right? This is for my seniors in the room. Homecoming just passed. I'm not saying this was none of y'all testimony, but I'm going to help you out. If you really wanted to be an adult, and you knew that you were applying for jobs, and they told you, or potentially, and you read the stuff, that they drug tested, homecoming this year was not a time for you to be smoking. Because at any point, you could have a drug test. And your application could be bombed. And they wanted to hire you, and they planned on hiring you until you peed in the cup. Because you wanted to do what you wanted to do, and not be an adult.
Right.
I'm good. I got more time on it. Can you come in? Because the only thing we want to hire you. We just need to give you this drug test.
Do grad schools operate in the same?
Depends on the school, right? But anyway, right? So, but you get the point that I'm making, right? At some point, we've got to grow up. We've got to make better decisions. Because see, I say this often, but this is the truth of the matter. You guys, any senior who's graduated last year, who's living life now, adulting is not fun. No, it's not. Now, there's some great benefits to it. There's some great benefits. I don't want to scare nobody. There's some great benefits to being an adult. Because to some degree, Sam, you can do what you want. You just can't do everything that you want, how you want. You can, but you need to know, what is it, Newton's third law, something like that, for every action. There is an equal and opposite reaction. There are consequences, good and bad, for everything that you do. Good and bad. There are consequences for everything that you and I do. And so I need us to understand that consequence is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes it's not a great thing. So I want us to grow up just a little bit. Okay? Start making some better decisions. Just grow up. Anything else?
So, as we were talking earlier, to the people who shared what their feelings were, do you have any advice for husbands who did share about the fear after saying,
the only advice that I have, and I'm talking to you as much as I'm talking to me, is the advice that the prophet gives to the woman in the text. Don't be afraid. Now, that sounds so simple coming out of my mouth, and it's so difficult in theory. It's so simplistic, but what does that mean? What does that mean? To not be afraid doesn't mean that your emotions are not uncomfortable.
No, that does not mean that.
Rather, to not be afraid means that I'm going to choose to do this in the face of my uncomfortability. That I'm going to trust that it's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to trust, and I'm going to push past, and I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to do it anyway. I'll help you out and show you a different way. There are some people that you are afraid to talk to, but you really wanted to get to know them. There are some jobs that you really, really wanted, but you applied to. There are some things, when you really, really want something, you push past how you feel to get it done. So what I would encourage is how we push past fear and anxiety is saying, God, give me the desire to want this as bad as it is that I really want this. You got to see this. One of the only reasons why this woman could bake this cake for this prophet first is because as much as her plan was for her and her son to die, she didn't want to die. If she had another option, she would have took the option out. She had another option. Take the other option. Anytime fear is present, there is always another option. So how do we get over fear? How do we deal with fear? Take the other option. Okay? It's like being afraid to get on a roller coaster. You'll never get over that feeling if you don't go get on the roller coaster. Get on the roller coaster and scream. It's okay. Everybody else screams too. Then get off the roller coaster. And even you absolutely hate them, but you can say, I got on. Or you will find, like me and my 11-year-old self, that you are an adrenaline junkie and you love them. You still have anxiety when you see them. But you get on it in the first... Anybody ever been afraid to get on a roller coaster? Now, I'm not talking to you, Nick, whatever. Anybody ever been afraid to get on a roller coaster and then get on it, get off, and what's the first thing that you want to do? Go get back on it again. That's some people, not everybody. But the point that I'm making is, if I was this woman, and the prophet was like, bake me a cake first, because this is what God said, and I baked him a cake, and this is what happened, I would have been like, bruh, what else is God saying?
This made me think of something. I guess, example, I'm not really swim at all, honestly, fast. I'm taking swim course. And my last class, I remember they wanted me to jump in the deep end, and that freaked me out. But I believe God, no, I know God was speaking to me and telling me, the longer you wait, the more scared you're going to be. You can get in right now. And so in that moment, I jumped in. And so maybe that's a parallel that procrastination will not help you feel less. Do it in the moment. Don't wait, because you procrastinating is not going to help you feel any less fear than what you already feel.
Right.
Like, do it earlier, get it done with. That's the way you deal with it. The only way to deal with stress is to deal with it.
Let me help you out tonight. Sam just prophesied over all y'all lives tonight. Jump in. That's it. That's the word of the Lord. Jump in. That's how you do it. Just dive in. Just jump in.
What Sam just said, that's my entire life. Especially, no, for real. So, especially when I was dealing with this whole thing of, the Lord has a tendency to tell me things that I don't want to know. Tells me, not everything, but a lot of things that I just don't want to know. And I'm like, you sit here telling me this, and then telling me to go tell this person over here and this person over there. Well, Jesus, I love you, but I don't know these people from Adam, and they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. So, one day I just decided, okay, you're going to keep talking to me. And at this point, I feel like you're yelling. Like, at first, you're calm, you collect, and now I feel like you're yelling at me. And then it was even more weird, because then my body was discombobulated and what have you. It sounds funny, I know it does, but I'm telling you the truth. your body get discombobulated, your legs start moving, you can't focus. It's like, okay, Jesus, you know what? I'm gonna do what you told me to do. So I finally do it, and everything that I thought was gonna happen was the exact opposite. It was the total exact opposite. But had I not jumped in, then it would have just been a matter of, I'm never going to know what this is. Now the issue is dealing with who to tell what, or what I'm supposed to know for me and not tell everybody.
Yeah.
And that's even more of an issue than people think it is. Because just because Jesus tells you something, don't mean that you got to go tell everybody else or tell the other person.
That comes from training. Sit up underneath somebody who can raise you up. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm getting sleepy. Don't do that. Y'all know I'm getting old.
I was just going to piggyback off of Sam because I had a similar situation. So in Naval RTC, you have to be second class swim qualified before you can get on a ship, right? Because they want to know that, like, if something go down on the ship, you know, if some shit go down on the ship, that you can handle your ship, right? Sweet. And so they so they take us to Georgia Tech. And you know, Georgia Tech is where the Olympics were held. They stick us up on the Olympic diving board and they say, clear the area, look for any debris, and step off. I'm 4'11". You want me to step off what? That's 15 feet up. I can't even see the bottom, and you want me to jump where? However, God does immaculate things, and He prepares you, because I learned how to swim before that. I swam competitively the senior year before I got into Naval ROTC, and it helped me out, because you know when you see somebody start flapping and you see people make fun of them because they don't know how to swim, they jump off the diving board. Anyway, you be like, God, thank you for this competitive swimming that I just did. I'm going to step off this diving board and pray that you're not going to be drowned. And then a Marine drill sergeant. See, I didn't have it like you. The Marine drill instructor had to come in behind me and whisper some nice things for me to step. So God had you.
You just said something that reminded me of something. So the woman in the text, she's like, this is all I have. And the prophet's response to her is this: what you have. What you have. She's like, this is all I got. I don't have enough for you. I can't do this. I don't have enough. And his response is simply, but you have. I want to encourage you tonight that you still have something. Stop saying what you can't do and look at the fact that you actually have something that you can. You have something. I don't have it. Yes, you do. You do. You just don't want it. But tonight, we've all committed that we're going to be a little bit more of an adult. And we're going to make the adult decision, which sometimes is the uncomfortable and the hard decision. Anything else? No? All right, come on, let's pray. Let's go home. Yes, ma'am.
This is just for like a prayer request. This lady I work with, Marita, she, her place burned down last night, so if y'all could just keep her and her children and everybody else who lives in that complex in their prayers.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, hold on. Before you do it, I'm going to take these moments to talk about adulting. Now, I don't know about her situation, I don't know about her, but I want to encourage you, as you are adulting, as you get your own apartment, your own house, stuff like that, if you get an apartment and you're renting, I want you to make sure that you get renter's insurance. Renter's insurance will cost you $20 or $30 a month, but if something happens like that, we'll give you $30,000. Which will pay for all your stuff and give you somewhere else to live. But if you don't have none, you don't get nothing. So as you adult and you get your own place, instead of eating out every night, pay for some renter's insurance and go buy some groceries. Hold on. Yes, ma'am.
Could we pray for my focus tonight and tomorrow and completing this assignment so that I don't procrastinate? Because I have a lot coming up for the weekend and I'm not trying to be stressed like that. I need to focus and get these things done. And not just plan to do them, I need to actually do them.
So that means you're going to turn off your phone and not be on social media too, right?
Yeah.
Or just turn off your phone. Yes, Pastor. Yes, Pastor. Because we're growing up tonight. See that? Amen.
Yes, Pastor.
Oh.
What does the word
Yes, Nick.
I did something really nice for somebody, and I think that they're responsible for something. I think that they're responsible for something that really, my car got broken into, and I think that they did it. And this person was living, I let this person live in my place. So I just pray that I continue to have a giving spirit, because it makes me not want to give anything to nobody.
Yes, sir.
I would like to prayer request because, in the words of Dr. Rosalind Gregory-Bass, it is summer program season, and I gotta write like 15 personal statements on the same thing and send it out and edit it and do it all again and get the courage up to ask teachers that I don't like for letters of rec. So could you please pray in my diligence and discipline in doing this in the help of the Lord, because I don't know what I'm supposed to write on the paper.
Can I have a prayer request for myself as well? I just need, you know, when you see things getting better, but there's always going to be different challenges. I just need prayer for sanity and that I do not backtrack, because I am a prime example of knowing better and not doing better. And I just need to stop being childish, because I'm not childish in my life. You know, oh yeah, and at my workplace as well, I need to keep my job. It's great money, and those people in there talk to me like I am their child. So I think God is just, working on me there.
I'm going to challenge you just a little bit. I just feel real pastoral.
You
So I'm going to challenge you, right? You may not be childish at work, but you're childish in your personal life, so you get treated like a child at work. Stop being childish in your personal life, and they'll stop treating you like a child at work.
So they don't say everybody like a child, so that means everybody
I'm not talking about everybody else. I'm talking about you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Because I want you to hear what you said. Because I think that God is stretching me in this way at work.
God's favor goes a long
Oh yeah, I
way.
see what you're saying.
You see what you said?
Yeah,
Just follow up what you said.
Thank you.
What you said? Anything else? Yes, sir.
So I've been looking for another student income, and I've been applying for jobs.
Come on, talk about
I got 2 job interviews back to back. It was yesterday and today. So I was just praying for a favor with the employer that they will remember me, and that I will get the job.
Seniors, let me help you out. This freshman is more of an adult than some of y'all seniors. Now, I'm not talking about y'all. I'm going to tell you why. If something needs to get done, he doesn't make an excuse, he gets it done. What do I mean? This joker walked to my church on Sunday.
He did.
Now, it is a 2-minute drive, but a 35, 40-minute walk. And I'm not saying that because he came to church. I'm saying that to say, he talked about how he had 2 job interviews, and he told me what they were, and they were extremely far from campus. And most of us would have been like, well, I don't know how to get there, or I can't ride the bus, or I don't have money for an Uber or a train, or this, that, and the third. And he got there, and his prayer request was, God, give me favor so that I can get a job, because I'm looking for an extra source of income. The point that I'm making is, you got it, so do something. Stop making excuses as to what you can't do. See, because he walked to church, but he got to ride back home. And thank you, Holy Spirit. And maybe if we start doing just like the woman, just like Sean now, that if we do on our end, then on the back end, some stuff will speed up and work in our business. And what took us 30 minutes will only take us 2 coming back. When we say we only got enough for me and my son to die, we'll have enough that lasts us through a drought that's in the land that lasts 3 whole years.
When you read the scripture, I know it's really quick. When you read the scripture, I was just thinking about like obedience for the sake of others. Because on Sunday, I did not want to come to church. I did not. Like, I was just like, listen, I did not want to go to church. But I went, and I ended up, you know, you rode with me, and like, I just, when you was reading the scripture, I thought to say this at the end, but I didn't say it. But like, when you just said that, I was just thinking about how, like, Elijah, or the woman, like, either way, they were both in a situation to bless each other. Like, you never know who's on the other end of your obedience to God. And like what they've been going through, because Elijah was also faithful. Because like if God told me to go to a widow in that social situation, a widow don't have them. You know what I'm saying? When it's homecoming and I'm tired, I don't want to go to church for real. Like, so you never know like what could be at the end of your obedience to God.
Can I say one thing? I'm sorry. Look, it's just another, I've been thinking about my godmom lately. She passed in July. You know, I try to, like, block it when I think about her, because, like, it be hitting me and it's weird, because she's, like, the closest thing I've ever lost. So, I don't know, but, like, her family as well. So, yeah. I be trying not to be sad, like, I be trying to.
I'm going to help you out just a little bit tonight. Sit with that emotion and be sad. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm always sad, though.
No. Listen to me. Sit with the emotion and be sad, and what you'll find is you'll work your own way out of the sadness instead of trying to ignore it, or rather ignore it and avoid it, which is why I said ignore it. Ignore it and avoid it. If you say, baby girl, please believe me, I have a whole lot of stuff that I can be sad about. That irks me to
Listen,
no
I feel like
end.
I'm like a crybaby, but like I'm tired of it.
I understand, but sit with it, because the more you sit with it, the less that you'll cry. I know it sounds backwards. I know it sounds backwards. I know it sounds backwards. But the more you sit with your emotions and don't try to run from, see, this is the thing. If you try to run from your emotions, they will beat you to where you're going. And they will find you there. And they will hop on your back like an ugly monkey. But if you sit with them and don't run away from them, they will run their course and you will be able to move forward and do what you need to do. Give it a minute, sit with it, and say, okay, let me go and do the stuff that I need to do. Don't try.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
I am. I
no,
promise
I
you.
swear, because...
No, I promise you.
No, I promise you don't understand what you're saying.
Oh, I promise you.
No, understanding.
Okay.
You're not keep talking.
No, we'll talk some more about it. But I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you, right? Even when you feel like you can't. And this is what I mean. You may have these thoughts or these feelings every single day. Every day. I understand. I know. I have been there. And at some point, perhaps you won't. But in the event that you do, sit with it and then get up and do what you need to do. If you cry, cry. So yesterday, you may have cried for an hour. And tomorrow, you may cry for 10 minutes. And as mad as you're at the fact that you cried and you're tired of crying, celebrate the fact that you cried for 10 minutes and not an hour. And then get up and do what you need to do. Because quite frankly, now I'm talking about people, quite frankly, even when other people are hurt, now I'm talking about people who have not passed away. Even when other people are hurt, the truth of the matter is, you may look at them and it seems like they are living their life and not thinking about you, but you can't stop thinking about them. Get up and do what you need to do. Sit with it and trust God. I believe that God is my healer. Say it with me. I believe that God is my healer. God can heal you everywhere that you hurt. He has a desire to. Yes, sir.
I'll just add to that. And just saying, like, and allowing yourself to feel your emotions, don't judge them. Like, a lot of times when we feel sad or we feel upset about a situation, we'll say, like, why do I feel upset about this? Why am I crying about this? And that feeling makes you feel worse, and it intensifies the emotion that you're having. So make sure when you are feeling sad, you don't place judgment on yourself for feeling sad. Allow yourself to feel sad, because it's normal to feel sad. Your feelings are not right or wrong, they just are. So just allow them to flow through you, and then like they will dissipate, because certainly there are moments in your life where you've been sad about a situation and now you're not sad about the situation anymore. The feeling will dissipate and go away with time, but you just need yourself to have that. And if you keep suppressing it, it will intensify and it will not go away.
But see, I deal with my emotions. That's not a problem with me. Like, I'm an emotional person, I'm very passionate. So I guess what I'm saying is coming off weird, but I don't know if it's because, like, it's kind of like a new situation to me. And I mean, it still is fresh because it's only been a couple of months. Like,
Since you got my class?
yeah.
Oh, that's not going nowhere then. It's a couple of months. You don't
Okay,
have to
yeah,
do
but like in general, I can deal with my emotions. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's
Yeah.
weird.
No, so it's, you just said it's fresh and it's new.
Grief.
Right? So it's, so it's grief, and that's one of the things that you just gonna have to. Grief is one of the processes that you can't run from.
Yeah.
And a part of that process is anger and being pissed off. It's being sad. It's wanting to throw stuff and break stuff. It's wanting to not get up out of the bed.